And then there's the Socratic method of leadership, where you focus on asking questions. And then there's, literally like expertise leadership, like someone's been doing something for decades and they're really good at whatever it is they're doing, and they've had a ton of experience and they know how things can go wrong. They know what mistakes could, lead to serious trouble. And so you just need all kinds of leadership depending on what you're trying to do. And so this is something that we think is really important, as sort of a core idea of Agile 2. And we feel like there wasn't enough discussion and focus on leadership in the original Agile manifesto, and it's needed now.
And I guess my initial question, like for 10.8 and 10.9 that are there, are two key components of that. That it's not just that, as you said in your example, you took a 2-day class 5 years ago, and that's all you're ever going to need. There's evolution of it, and you have to keep working at it with your teams. But then the other piece, when you were talking about some of the stuff in the chat also about delivering value, but Agile is all about doing things in iterations and short increments and learning and improving. It's really process improvement in a short time frame, and constantly doing that. And one of the things that's hard sometimes, and then I've often seen teams will deviate away and then they say it's Agile didn't work, but they don't really place any emphasis on the demo piece of then showing it back to the customers of what's going to be there, but then also on the retro piece of doing the self-reflection to say, how are we going to be a better team? And so that was why I was just interested. I understand now that you guys didn't go maybe quite as deep into some of those questions, but trying to understand what was the environment that the Agile was put into, and then to a lot that you have on here and a lot that you spoke to through that, how was it supported? And the answer is frequently it failed because it was just stated it was going to be something. Maybe some people went to a class and then magically it was all just going to fall in place. And as you said, that's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we do talk a little bit in the book about the concept of emergent leadership. And that could be like, say you do send somebody to a 2-day Scrum class and they come back and they become a Scrum Master, or at Axios we call them Scrum Leads. And they realize that there's more to this Agile thing than meets the eye, and they get curious. And they read and they study and they go to meetups, and then they take a class, and then they decide to take a coaching class, right? And if the organization is supportive of that individual and their efforts to grow and develop their skill set, then you can see some real maturity. And I've even talked to some of the early Agilists who talked about, before we had all these certification bodies and different ways to learn and classes you could take, they would do that in-house in their organization. They would create learning programs for individuals to grow and develop, and then it was sort of combined with your career track. So you could look forward to promotion or some kind of compensation or some title change or something that would come with not only taking class, but also demonstrating over a period of time, like maybe even as long as a year, that your ability to work with a team effectively and so forth, and to advance your skills. And I think that personally, I have benefited greatly from many of the Agile classes and training that I've taken. And I really am grateful for the people who led those classes and the things that I learned from them. And I think organizations that support people in that journey will have, Agilists on hand who know what they're doing, but they can't succeed if the leadership is putting in place, as you spoke to, obstacles and making it impossible for teams to, for example, like we were talking about, tackle technical debt or do product discovery, right? Because they're just saying, well, we know what the leadership is saying, we know what the users want. We want you to build this feature, we want you to build that feature. And they just lay out all the features for like 6 months worth of features. And there's no chance to really learn from the market and do rapid iterations and product discovery. So it is pretty complex, and it does need to involve everyone in the organization, including the very top level people. And when that doesn't happen, it's much harder for whatever it's harder to make money, right? It's harder to have teams that are productive. It's harder to be successful, let alone, because Agile isn't the goal. Like, we're not doing an Agile transformation so that we can be Agile, right?
It's the way to do things. It's a process. And so
Well,
the value is created that comes out of that. But as you said earlier, there are many different ways that it can be done. One size doesn't fit all, but you have to figure that out. And so that's why I like where you guys have a lot more of a more granular look at a lot of things, because it is all those variables have to come together to be successful. But frequently organizations don't look at that. They just say, what do people tell us when, and the general times when I've seen it or talked with peers that didn't have success with it, it's generally that a lot of those variables aren't coming together at the same time to give it a chance for success. There are many roadblocks, and a lot of times that's individuals that are inherently going to make it a lot harder. And so it just is kind of doomed from the beginning if there's not that commonality of thought and having a solid foundation you're trying to work from.
So I'm curious if anyone else has any questions. I've sort of come to, I know I whipped through many of these slides. They're all explained in great detail on our agile2.net website, if you want to go look them up. But I'm wondering if anyone has any questions or thoughts about your experience that have come up as you've been listening to this.